Hey friends, it's Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas, and in today's video I wanted to do a Christmas book haul. It's not a very big haul, so let's jump right into it. The first book is Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patti Callahan, and I have already finished reading this book. This book is about a young woman who is called Megs by everybody she knows. That's her nickname, but her real name is Margaret. She is studying at Oxford University. She likes physics and mathematics, and her younger brother George is dying. He was born with a heart condition and the doctors can do nothing to save him. He has recently read a book that was just published called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and he wants his sister Megs to ask the author, C.S. Lewis, who was also a professor at a nearby college, where did Narnia come from? So Megs asks C.S. Lewis where did Narnia come from, but instead of directly answering her question, he tells her stories about his life, which she then tells George. I was really excited to read this book because Narnia means a great deal to me. The movie was the very first movie I ever saw in theaters. It greatly affected me. I would not be the person that I am today, much less the author that I am today, without Narnia. Ironically, I've never read any of the Narnia books other than The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I had the ending spoiled for me. I don't even remember how it happened, but I remember it being spoiled, and I didn't really like the ending. And so, because I love the movie so much, part of me wonders if I should even attempt to read the books at all, because I'm worried that the books may somehow spoil the love that I have for the movie and ruin my enjoyment of it somehow. I've kind of come to the conclusion that if you love something a lot, whatever medium you originally partook of the story in is probably the medium you should stick with. I don't believe that the books are always better than the movie. Most of the time, probably, but not always. Next up, we have The Collector's Daughter by Gill. This is the story of Lady Evelyn Herbert, who basically ran away from her wealthy upper-class life to go to Egypt with the archaeologist Howard Carter, and she was the first person to enter King Tut's tomb. This is basically a story of the discovery of King Tut's tomb and then the bad events that happened thereafter, which led to people wondering if there was in fact a curse. I don't know that much about the events that made people think there might actually be a pharaoh's curse, but I'm interested to see what exactly happened with that. This book also takes place at least partly in the 1920s because the tomb was discovered in 1922, and I love the 20s. I also really love everything to do with Egypt. When I was younger, I was obsessed with Egypt, and I never really looked into it that much. I was also interested in dinosaurs, and unfortunately dinosaurs took center stage, but I'm no longer interested in dinosaurs, but I am still interested in Egypt, so I'm very excited to read about this book and to see what it was like to discover this tomb for the very first time. It was pretty much, I think, completely intact. All the treasure was still there, it hadn't been plundered, so it was probably just an amazing find. Like, these things just don't happen that often. And then of course all of the bad things that happened afterwards, I have no idea what those things are, so it will be interesting to see what happened that made people think that there might in fact be a curse. Next we have A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first book in the Age of Madness. I think it's a trilogy, and I believe the last book just came out this year. I have never read any of Joe Abercrombie's work. I hadn't really heard of this book before, but I have been told that it's quite good. And the summary of this book seems a little vague, but from what I understand, basically the age of magic is coming to an end, and now it's in conflict with the age of machines, and there's a lot of wealth and a lot of power, and then of course you have the slums, and there's anger rising, there's a lot of resentment, and I assume that means there's going to be some sort of rebellion, so I'm excited for that. I love fantasy stories that have war or rebellions or just some sort of big conflict going on, and I love this cover, by the way. The idea of magic versus machines is something that I find interesting. I don't encounter that a great deal, but I think it can be done very well, so I'm interested to see what this book holds. Next we have Empire in Black and Gold by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is also a fantasy story about an empire and an impending war, which is right up my alley. I love stories about empires, and the empire is closing in on this territory that they hope to take over, and only one man sees the threat looming, so he has to try to stop it. But in order to do that, he has to stay alive first. I have also heard good things about this book, so I have high hopes for it, and yeah, I like stories with empires and wars and conflicts, so I hope that this will not disappoint. And last but not least, we have The Ranger of Marzanna by Skovron. I think I'm saying that right, I'm not sure. This book is also about an empire, and it's taking over the kingdom. The main character is a ranger of Marzanna. Her father has been killed by the empire, and she's kind of in hiding. She's trying to gather a force that can bring the empire down, but there's just one problem, and that problem being that her brother is training to be a sorcerer, and he's fighting on the side of the empire. So I like the dynamic when siblings are against each other. I think that's just an interesting thing to explore in stories, and I don't really see it often enough, and I think probably it's not done that well either most of the time, but it would be very interesting if this book does deliver on that and we see these two siblings who are in conflict against each other when they should be fighting on the same side. But it would be interesting to see how each of them got there. Like, why did her brother choose to fight for the Empire? Why is she a ranger of Marzanna? Why did she join them? Why didn't he? So it will be interesting to see why these two siblings are pitted against each other and how that came to be. This book doesn't have a very high overall rating on Goodreads, which makes me a little bit nervous, but I'm willing to give it a try and see what I think of it for myself. So that is it. It was just a fun, simple little book haul. I hope that you enjoyed this video and maybe it introduced you to a few books you might want to check out for yourself, or maybe you already have checked out some of them for yourself. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. I upload every week, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!